me and my dad have been through lots of ups and downs along the way.
This time on Combat Central, WBC Muay Thai World Champion Max McVicker.
Bit of a golden age, really. Like a lot of fighters have come through, and I said like that was everything I had to. I had to deal with that, because if I didn't, then I would just sort of fade into the back.
The 23-year-old Aussie is pushing towards the pinnacle of Muay Thai with plans to solidify his dominant surge. From fighting in dingy little venues in Australia to competing on the biggest stages in Thailand, the Aussie recently snagged a spot on one of the most prestigious fight promotions, RWS, facing off against some of the best fighters in the world. I sat down with the rising star to speak about his tight bond with his father, his upcoming fight, Australia going through a golden age of Muay Thai, the rock bottom moments that helped him grow as a fighter, and much, much more. Mate, congratulations. First of all, huge win. Sajjad, that a few weeks ago now, but my God, have you come down off that cloud yet? I mean, that was an amazing win over a really tough opponent. How are you feeling?
Good, yeah. I'm really happy with it. It was like a fight that was a long time coming, right? So, yeah, buzzing and got to spend like some really good quality time with my family and Hannah afterwards as well. So, yeah, I feel like now I'm going back into training. It's starting to settle a bit more. I almost have to like move on because the tournament is so like quick, like coming around. But yeah, just really happy with how it went actually.
Good. Yeah, it looked really clean. I watched your the fight back again yesterday. Yeah, it looked amazing. It was obviously just such a tight matchup, and you know, you guys were just trading. It just seemed like a huge chess battle from my perspective. How did it feel in there against him?
I think it's like what you described, right? It was always going to be really like a battle of who can land what just like one more time than the other. And I spoke to my dad before the fight, and he said, you know, you've prepared for this fight 3 times now, which is true. I'd trained for it like on several occasions. I knew that Sajjad and I were going to end up fighting each other, so we knew what we were sort of facing going into it. And so like pretty much everything that I thought would happen happened really. I was able to, I think one of the main differences was like he didn't so much answer passing on the way. So like one of the main differences was like I was able to like utilize, I've thrown a few punches early to throw off. And in those 3 rounds, it's really important, like taking that first round, very different to like the five round style. Like if Sajjad and I fought over 5 rounds, I feel like everyone would see a very different fight. I like to hope the result would go the same way, but the fight itself would have to play out in a different manner than like on an RWS like 3 round style, where we're both sort of forced to go and smash and grab at that first round and then force the other one to chase us.
Yeah, I saw he grabbed your feet. You know, you were landing some kicks and you kept on grabbing your foot. What was the feeling behind that? Like, was it frustrating when he kept on catching it, or was it just like something you needed to kind of, you know, change up?
I mean, the thing is, like, I had a couple of people ask me about this, and like, in terms of like scoring and fouling and things like that, there's a couple things that allowed me to be okay with it, if that makes sense. There was a couple times where he did it and it was completely illegal. And then there was a couple of times where he did it and it was legal. So it kind of cancelled itself out slightly. And also, like, tipping somebody straight onto their back isn't like that big a scoring thing in Muay Thai. Like, if you were to catch and like throw the kick away and return with a big body kick, it would score a lot higher than like just tipping somebody over, especially when you're like questionably on the verge of fouling. And the fact that they've landed a big strong kick on you in the first place matters to something as well. So like by tipping somebody over, it doesn't actually do that many favors for you. Now if we were in a place where the judges were not so good, then I probably would have been a bit more worried about it. But we're in Rajadamnern and the judges have all judged for a very long time. So sort of like seeing the referee warn him a couple times, seeing that my corner wasn't worried about it, and knowing that I was landing strong kicks, I didn't so much get stressed until like the 4th time it happened, and it was like quite clearly a foul, when it was quite clearly a foul, I made a point of sort of like shrugging towards him and saying like, gesturing that like it was illegal and that he can't do that. Just to sort of, because like fouling like that can very often push the judges against you. Yeah. And so almost when he made that foul, I knew that it was like working in my favor rather than working against me. And so it almost like, at first it was a little bit shaking, but I sort of leveled with myself, like made myself stay calm. And then when he did foul towards the end, it almost gave me confidence. So
it must have felt good getting the win after your loss against Udwicha. Yeah, how did that feel? Like, take me through that fight. That was obviously a difficult loss. Another close one against someone who's very established in the sport. Talk me through that fight.
I think like going into the fight with the other guy was like, I think one of my main mistakes was like what you said, very established. He's been around a long time. A lot of people would just like write me off in terms of fighting someone like Yogacha. And so I think I was a bit like hesitant in the first round. A lot of the time when he fights foreigners, he just punched their head off in the first round, and then like for 2 rounds, if he's not knocked them out, he'll just dance around. Like it's too easy for him, And I think going into the fight, I was like thinking a bit, maybe it was in the back of my mind saying like, don't be another highlight reel for him. Don't just get clipped by a punch in the first round. And with my style, normally being cautious in the first round does me favors. But I think because of the way that he fought, I sort of gave him the first round by not going to him and creating enough like opportunity to score for myself. By like leaning away from the punches and stuff, it sort of put me in a position where I didn't look very strong. And so once I'd given him that first round, I had to sort of step up in the second. And that's when I did perform a fair bit better. A lot of people, even in Thailand over here, a lot of people were saying like, that round was like, we thought you won round 2 and then round 3 would have been different. So I performed a lot better in round 2. It wasn't enough for the judges. So it's like, that was what it was. But I was a lot happier with how round 2 went versus round 1. I made a couple of like silly mistakes in round 1, like falling on the ropes and letting him land a big knee. And then round 2, I sort of rectified a couple of like mistakes. And if round 2 would have gone the other way, then the fight in the third round would have been very different, right? But once I lost round 2 and I'm 2 rounds down, I sort of have to, like I said to someone else previously, like I had to throw down the gauntlet. If you've lost 2 rounds, I mean, what's the point in like trying to win the third round on points? I just had to go for it. So the third round was a bit of like a throwaway round. Just had to try and hurt him. And I mean, I managed to do some damage, but like it wasn't enough to win the fight.
Yeah. Oh, it was a great fight. And hopefully you get to meet him again. And, you've learned probably so much from that fight as well. Yeah. So I'm really excited to hopefully see that in the future. Where did your love for Muay Thai come from, mate? I mean, you're only fairly young. What are you, 20, 21?
I'm 23 now. I'm 23.
Oh, you're 23 now? Yeah. I've got bad info. Yeah. Where did your love for Muay Thai come from?
I started Muay Thai when I was 5 years old. My dad did Muay Thai before, started before I was born. And his Muay Thai career sort of finished when mine started. He became a dad and, just got busy with life and worrying about me. And then he became a coach, like an assistant coach. And he used to come home from training and I'd want to go with him. And then he didn't let me go till I was 5. And I think that almost did him some favors because by saying I couldn't go, I wanted to go. And then when I turned 5, I went to the gym and then never really looked back. I've never not trained since then. So, I grew up in Muay Thai and fought almost every weekend when I was a kid. So that was like the beginning of the story. I think I always just, I don't know, I don't remember much. I just remember being around it. If you're just in and around something long enough, then you just learn and learn and learn. So that was pretty much it.
That's awesome. So from what I've seen just on your socials, it looks like you've got a really strong bond with your dad. Take me through that. Like, what does he mean to you? And, what's it been like, kind of following in his footsteps, I guess? Yeah.
Me and my dad have been through lots of ups and downs along the way. Like, Muay Thai's put a lot of pressure on us, like, us as family, but it's also brought us like very close together as well. Like now the stakes are so high when I fight that like emotions are like run high. But you know, it was like our bonding experience when I was a kid. I think it gave him something he could spend so much time with me, and you know, like I was lucky enough to have him, a dad who was young enough to still, you know, train with me, and like he was able to go out and play with me and stuff, and so that was really special. And then as I got older, I got to go and take the skills that I'd learned from him and go and apply them to not just Muay Thai but in life as well. Like Muay Thai has given me so many life skills that I'm now able to apply, and a lot of that's because of him. And now I'm just sort of like, I often look and I'm envious of like what he's like as a person. People I feel like a lot of people would describe me as like chatty and loud and like, you know, I'll talk to anyone, and my dad's quite reserved and everything's very calculated, but what he does say is always like, you'll remember what he says, and sometimes I like want to be that wise man that he is. But
oh, that's awesome. Was there ever a point where you were, you know, that kind of meeting of both your skills, like you kind of started kicking his butt a little bit?
I mean, he stopped sparring me before he let that happen. Yeah, he started to. There was some niggles and injuries that pulled him out of sparring before I ever got big enough. But yeah, I think he'd always say I'd try and beat him up, try and go too hard. That's what he'd always say. So yeah, I was still quite young when he stopped sparring with me. Started creating fighters to spar me instead.
How many fights have you had?
Including my amateur career, probably about 130 fights. My professional's more like 30-ish, something like that. But I think my amateur, like I said, when I was really young, I'd fight every weekend. I sort of just throw out 130 because I just like
that's what you think
around the right mark.
Yeah. When did you start? When was your first fight on RWS?
That was only the start of this year, I think. So that was March, I think March, where there'd been discussions of me fighting on there, and I like trained through Christmas to try and get on a show. Like I was real keen to have like a busy year. And then there was a fight in Japan that nearly happened, and then that dropped out. And so I sort of was like, okay, I just want to fight, like get me on a show. And so I jumped on RWS, and then I fought Yard Compact from Sinbi. And then right after the show, they were like, oh, we'll get you back, like we'll bring you back. And that I was actually meant to fight Sajjad, the second fight, I think. And then he had a knee injury and had to pull out. That was like when I was in Sydney on the way to the airport. And then they replaced him with a Ukrainian boy, a Ukrainian kickboxer who I fought in the second fight. And then after that, it's been like the tournament.
What's it like fighting on those cards? From just an outside perspective, it looks amazing. Like it looks like, you know, the dream, right? Yeah,
it's like, I mean, it's definitely, it's the best place I've ever fought. I think for a few reasons. Like you always go like speak to people who fought in like a stadium like that, and you know, it sounds cliche and they're like, oh, it's just special and blah blah blah. But it really is special when you do it, because I mean, it's a place that's set up for like watching Muay Thai, fighting Muay Thai, and like everything is set up in a certain manner for that. It's like how a football stadium is made for football. A lot of the time when we fight in like Australia, it's like you're fighting in a basketball court, or like you know, you're fighting somewhere. So there's only so much atmosphere that can be created, and like the seats can only be put in a certain way. And whereas this is like made for that, and there's a live band there that come every single show, and the ring is like a special ring that's been around for a long time, and it's just everything is really efficient. The back rooms have like story to them, and everything feels magic. Even the crowd, like I'm lucky enough as well that like all the Australians support me in the venue, and lots of Australians come over to Bangkok as well. So if I can get like that crowd behind me, then it feels like extra special, because I have like the atmosphere of the stadium alone, and then supporters that get behind me as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, going to that, fighting in backroom places in Australia. When I used to fight, I fought in this wedding venue once, and the chandeliers from the top of the venue were hanging over the cage. And you literally, like, some of the guys, the heavyweights, were like hitting it with their heads when they were fighting. It was nuts. So
Random.
it's pretty funny, like some of the places in Australia where you have to fight, like compared to some of those stadium joints. What about, so you were originally from England, correct? And you moved over to Australia. How old were you when you moved over?
So I was born in Manchester in England, and then we moved to Australia when I was like 11 years old. So my dad just got good work opportunities in Australia, and my uncle had already moved over here. We came and visited him, and then after that, my dad was pretty much just like, this is a good place for us to grow up, and it's like the best decision he ever made. I think if you were to ask him like what the trajectory of our lives that he made the biggest like success, it was probably moving to Australia, because even after the first year, my mum like was missing home and stuff like that. But once we got to like 2 years onwards, I feel like now all of us are just like so happy with being in Perth. We just love it there. That's awesome.
So where do you say where did you move to in Australia when you came over?
Yeah, we moved to Perth, and my parents have been there ever since.
Right.
So about 3.5 years ago, I moved to Canberra to train with Kieran at Muay Thai, which was at the time like I love Perth, and that Perth will always be my home now, so to speak. But at the time, like, I just wanted to do the best I could in Muay Thai, and that was the best opportunity for me in and amongst like COVID. So yeah,
well, it's a good move. Talking about your training at Muay U, there's a fighter I spoke with a few months ago, Charlie Barb. What an absolute legend. You've gotten a bit of training with him. Talk to me about him. Have you done much? You've obviously done a bit of sparring and training with him. Are you close with him?
Yeah. Charlie and I are good mates. Like, Charlie's like that dude. You know, I feel like nobody can say any bad about Charlie because he's just that nice to everyone. You know, he's one of those people you just want to see succeed all the time. He quite often comes down from Orange to spar David and myself. And every time he comes, it's always a pleasure, you know, like, just looks like a gentleman dude. Like, I only have good things to say about Charlie.
He's a great bloke, isn't he? He's very funny as well. It was a pleasure to talk with. But yeah, it sounds like he's having a bit of an annoying time trying to bloody book fights.
Yeah. I think the thing about Charlie is he's like, even sparring him, like, if I'm being like completely honest, like it's not pleasure sparring him. Like he's very difficult to deal with. You know, he's not. He doesn't let you fight. If that makes sense. Like he'll spar with you, but he's got that like different sort of kickboxing style. Like he can fight Muay Thai, but he's got like that kickboxer at heart feel to him. So he does very unorthodox things and swaps stances, and you know, he sort of skips forward. He's got like heavy hands, and he kicks high out of nowhere, and it's like fighting him just wouldn't be a nice experience. So it's like, it makes sense why people don't want to fight him. Like, he's got such a big frame and he's so powerful. And now he's at a point where I've spoke to him a few times. Like when I used to watch him versus now, he's one of those fighters where they often get to a point where they stop growing as fighters. But Charlie gets better every time he fights. His ability to look and see what's going on. Like when I watched him fight Jake Lund, the growth was just like, you know, Jake didn't have an answer for anything. He was incredible. So Charlie, that's a sort of testament to how much he dedicates himself to improving, not just as like an athlete, but as a fighter. He's always trying to get better. So
yeah. Who else? Any other Aussies that we should look out for?
There's so many Aussies to look out for, I reckon.
It's a good time for Muay Thai in Australia, isn't it?
It's like a bit of a golden age, really. Like a lot of fighters are coming through, but I think what Australia used to have like was, you know, there was a lot of like guys who were very solid at like 63 to 65 kilos, and then like you got your Tobys who are a bit heavier as well, and like Wayne, but like all the way through there's always been like a solid amount of dudes like that were just like boom 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 boom. you know, like Roy Wills, Jordan Godfredson, like those guys were like the ones before me. And then before that, had like Daniel Dawson and like Darren Reese, Joe Wayne Powell, like all those fighters that go back. But I think now it's like the variety is what makes it special. Is like you've got Dandra, who's training at Phuket Fight Club here. You've got like David, who's a bit heavier, and you know, like Bryony Surden in Perth, and then like you've got like such a variety of different good fighters, which is very nice to see. There's a few that go without saying, like Chad Collins and stuff like that. But like now, I just really like that Australia isn't just like, it's just like guys between 60 and 70 kilos. But there's like women now who are competing, you know, like Kim Townsend, who's now had like 8 world titles in a row or something like that. And like seemingly unbeatable, you know, just like so many different fighters at so many different weights is what's super impressive about Australia at the moment.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? Going to your partner, I saw she seems like an amazing person, and you know, you guys are very lucky to have each other. But I saw she was bashing you the other day because you weren't doing the washing. How did that go?
Yeah, she does everything pretty much at home. It's like, I'm just a giant baby.
How did you guys meet? Did you guys meet in Thailand?
Hannah and I met at Muay at the gym. So yeah, met Hannah probably about 2 years ago. She sat just over here, but it was about 2 years ago I met me. Yeah, Hannah actually had a minor car accident, which I helped her out with.
Really?
I dropped her home. Yeah. That's how we met originally. Yeah. She told me she curbed the car. She crashed the car. But yeah, that's how it all sort of started. She's already gone very red over there.
Oh, like she's pretty handy with her kicks on your body anyway.
Yeah. So she's only been training for like a year now, but she's had like one development day fight, and now she's gonna jump in at the next opportunity over here. So she's like not only come and is like such a rock and support for me, but she's pursuing her own career over here as well.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. Training over in Thailand, what's that been like? I mean, you know, God, you're training Muay Thai over in Thailand, but training it in Phuket, you know, the center of the sport pretty much. What's it been like training over there, and how different is it training in Australia to training there?
I think the difference here is just that little bit difference in volume. I mean, Phuket Fight Club, and especially like I train under Leo, is like a go-between. Like you have the old school Thai way of, it's just like you're doing so much, it's like unreal. You know, you can't keep up with the volume. And then there's like Muyu and Kieran. Kieran would be the first to say he has a very modern approach. And if he doesn't feel like you're benefiting enough from something, then he'll just discard it. He's like, oh, we're not doing it. It's not worth it. Which is like the way he likes to do things. And I'll tell you, Leo sits around the middle. You know, sometimes he gets to do something just because it's hard. And he has like that slight influence of like the old school. And then he also understands that like now we're athletes. We're not like horses to be flogged. And we need to like be good athletes and take care of our bodies and do our strength and conditioning and have a day's rest. Whereas like some old school Thai gyms, like they'll just train through Sunday, Monday, like no rest days or anything like that. So yeah.
I won't keep you for too much longer, mate, but I wanted to ask, you know, on your journey as a Muay Thai fighter and as a fighter in general, what's been, you know, are there any good stories that you can tell me about, you know, your time as a fighter and anything that's kind of shaped you as a person?
I think I've got good and bad. Like a lot of the stories that have shaped me as a person have been like quite tragic, have been quite bad ones, you know. But because like, I mean, that's where that discomfort makes growth, right? Like I had, after I put myself through quite like a difficult time when I was training to fight Singpac, just through like, I made myself cut a lot of weight, and it was such a daunting task at the time, and I wasn't in the best headspace. And coming out the other side of that and having lost but get so much praise for the way I performed was quite a special moment. Like I fought like an ex Channel 7 champion, and I lost on a majority points decision. But I feel like a lot of people silently thought, well, he's too young to fight him, he'd just never win. And then they would spend the first 3 rounds wondering if I could do it. And so it was like enough shock to cause people to go, oh, this kid's the real deal. And I think as much as like I would have liked to have won, I came out the back of that fight and I was like dead on my feet, not even on my feet. I was dead on my back, had a pad under my head, like flat on my back. I was like but there was no ounce of me that was like, I could have done more. Like as soon as I was able to talk, because for a good like 10 minutes I couldn't talk because I thought I was going to vomit, I rolled over to, at the time, who was my coach, Chris, and he said, and I said, like, that was everything I had tonight. And I was actually proud of it, you know, like I gave everything I had and it wasn't enough. And there was things I could do now that I couldn't do then, but I was like proud of what I'd done. So there's that. I mean, I have so many like random stories and stuff like that, but it's quite hard to think of them on the spot. But yeah, a lot of them are like pretty hard stories where like, you know, like dislocating my knee in the first round of one fight and not being able to fight. But then like,
when was that?
That was, I think I was 19 when that happened. No, I think I'd have been 19. That was like 2019 or 2020. I dislocated my knee in the first round of a fight. But the whole recovery of that, like, sort of made me grow as a person. And then the fight afterwards, I had, after I weighed in, there was a hole in my esophagus. And so they had to pull me out of the fight on the day. And so I really went through the ringer because a lot of people, like, didn't believe anything had happened to me on that day. And so I copped a lot of sick online, and so like those experiences sort of made me go from being like a kid who just fought to like, okay, now you have to be flung into the real world, deal with adults and be one. Because at the time I was only 19, copping a bunch of like people basically saying I was scared of people online and like having to navigate and deal with that. When you can only really do it for yourself, that was like a big growing experience for me. Like like what you said before, like it sort of shaped me as a person. I had to deal with that, because if I didn't, then I would just sort of fade into the back and not be like the fighter that I am now. Like because the fighting part is only like half of it, because it's a big, like the way you look to the public matters in Muay Thai, because like, if everyone thinks that you're not somebody, you'll never get the opportunity to fight the somebodies. You've got to work and prove yourself by marketing yourself as somebody who's ready to fight and that sort of thing as well. So,
yeah, for sure. Just quickly, what are your plans for the future? What do you see yourself doing from here on out? You know, are there any kind of really big goals that you want to kind of tick off?
I mean, at the moment, there's obviously the primary goal of winning the RWS tournament. And that breaks into a lot of smaller goals. So like, obviously the first thing being, I have to beat Hercules. If I win against Hercules, then I move into the semi-final, and then like that becomes a lot more attainable, if that makes sense. So I have to beat Hercules, and then I have to worry about the next person and the next person after that in the semi-final and the final. After that, like if and when I manage to win the tournament, which is obviously always the plan, I wouldn't mind having a couple of months just to allow my body to reset and recover, as that will be like fighting month to month, back to back 7 times. And so I wouldn't mind giving myself just a little bit of time to reassess where I am at then. If say the tournament doesn't go the way I'd like to, and that I don't end up progressing, then there's a couple of different options I have. I can continue to fight on RWS outside of the tournament, or I can look to fight like something I'd like to tick off is prove myself in the stadiums as well. And a good time to do that would be while I'm here in Thailand under someone like Leo who understands that game. So that's always an option if I wasn't to progress. But of course, the focus is on winning against Hercules so I can progress in the tournament. In further on down the line, I'm not sure at this point in my career, there's so much that I can go and do that I just want to focus on being the best I can be. But obviously the short-term goal is like to win the tournament, and like the distant future, if I've learned anything over like the last few years, is you can't really like plan for what the goal is going to be in Muay Thai, because like the landscape is so changed. Like when I was 17, winning the Rajadamnern title in the stadiums was like the be all and end all. And like WMC titles were worth so much more than WBC titles. And now it's sort of like switched and sort of the other way around. So if my goal was to be like Lumpini champion when I was 15, but now like really it's not. I mean, it's still a great achievement, but it's not the same achievement that it was. And one championship wasn't a thing then, you know, like it's all sort of like the landscape is so ever changing that like to plan for more than like a year in advance in Muay Thai is almost like you don't know what's going to happen. So
yeah. Would you move over to one championship?
At this point in my career, no. It's like not really an interest of mine. One championship can be like down the track for me. I think that it's all, like if it's there, it's there, and if it's not, it's not. There's lots of people that I'd like to fight that are in one championship, but the issue with it is like the purse would have to match the risk for myself. Like I feel like I have a bright future in Muay Thai, and if I break both my hands and my jaw, that can completely change my future. And of course, there's a risk in normal Muay Thai, but it's something I've done for a long time, and it's a calculated risk. And I have no idea how I'm going to perform in small gloves. And I feel like it like anyone who says that they're going to go from normal gloves and I'll be fine in them little gloves, and some of the best fighters in the world have gone over there. Like the best of the best fighters have gone over there and then just hurt themselves on someone's head. So you don't know what's going to happen. You know, Sajad's a great example of it. He went over to one championship in his first fight, completely dominated, but he broke his hand and had to pull out against me. So it's like you might earn a bonus from a knockout, but then you break your hand and the surgery costs you a certain amount of money, and then the time out of the ring costs you a bunch of money, and then you go back and your hand's not the same anymore. So it's like the risk reward ratio has to be right for the money, I suppose.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, mate, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. It's actually, amazing hearing, all about your life and, how you got into Muay Thai, but obviously about the most recent fights. They were amazing to watch. Good luck, mate. We can't wait to see your next fight. And then, we'll see where you shape out in the next year. Hopefully have some understanding by this time next year.
Yeah, thank you.